Have you ever left your doctor's appointment more confused than you walked in? You are not alone. In fact, over 60% of Americans say that they don't understand, right? This was I had to get this down. 6% of Americans say they don't understand what their healthcare provider just told them. And this is after a 15-minute appointment. 2/3 admit that they skip treatments, skip tests, and simply like, you know what? I'm just not going to do it because they don't understand the message that they got. Those are frightening numbers. And when you hear the fact that a majority of Americans are experiencing this way, you know one thing is clear. The healthcare system is broken. And I don't want to say it's by design. I hate to say it's by design, especially because I'm in the field, but it makes no sense if you have a system where the majority of the customers, right? Because that's what a patient is. The majority of the customers are confused and don't follow directions. Like that cannot be a recipe for success. So what we're going to do, right? And again, these are some numbers, right? 62% are more confused with doctor's advice. 70% struggle with just the cost and instructions, right? All these things that are just kind of piling on in. I'm Dr. Barry Pierre. I'm the host of Medicine Mondays. Today, we're going to talk about, what this system is and why it feels so confusing. More importantly, we're going to help you navigate this system at hand, because if you do not, it can cost you your life. And I don't want to be as hyperbolous and be like, oh, no, he's just being dramatic. No. If you don't follow the right directions, or you can't follow the right directions, more importantly, because it's one thing to say you don't follow directions, but doc, I didn't even understand what you said. So how can I follow something I don't even understand? That usually is the more of the outlier than anything else. And of course you're going to have some people who just don't follow your directions. They understand it is like, I'm not going to do it. But when you have a majority of people say, yeah, I don't understand what went down. He was talking to me. He said a couple of tests. He didn't really say why it was important. But I got this piece of paper in my hand, right? We're in trouble, right? We're in trouble as healthcare providers. We're in trouble as patients, right? Because all doctors are patients, right? Like, again, I see my doctors every year as well, too. If I got something else, I go see them a little more frequently. So by the end of this video, things I want you to get, right? You will not see or feel that this healthcare system is out to get you. You will not see or feel that this healthcare system is hard to understand. By the end of this video, I hope that you'll be able to walk into your doctor's office on your next appointment. Remember, I'm not your doctor, right? You'll be able to walk into your doctor's office at your next appointment fully capable and understanding what's going on. More importantly, be able to take action on what's going on, right? Because there's one thing to understand what's going on, but if you take no action upon it, like what's the point of getting it, right? So again, I mean, truly, let's get a conversation going. All right, so let's pull back on some of this mystery that's happening within the healthcare system. Again, and you're talking to a person who has done healthcare system in the outpatient setting, in the inpatient setting, in the skilled nursing facility setting, memory care, ALF. I've even done some home visits. Like, I've touched just about every aspect. And of course, for those who know, I used to be a former program director, right? So I've done the admin side as well. I'm a medical director at a couple of places. So I've done the admin side as well too. So that I can assure you that like there aren't a lot of, avenues within medicine that I haven't seen both sides of. And I can tell you that I can 100% understand why a person who, I do this for a living, right? I do this for a living, right? And I think this is what I want patients to understand. When we say that the patients are having trouble navigating the system, I can assure you that there are a lot of doctors having trouble navigating the same system, confused about the same system, right? So if the people, right, the physicians who are in charge of providing the care recognize that, yeah, this healthcare system is kind of weird and I don't really understand it, what do you think you, as a person who is, I guess we'll call it uninitiated, going to experience, right? So understand, right? And these are the numbers, right? The average doctor's visits today, right? I want you to put in the comments, right? Put in the comments, or, if you're listening to the podcast, just kind of think about it. How long do you think the average doctor's visit is today? So the answer is 13 minutes. 13 minutes, right? 13 minutes. 13 minutes to essentially get your life story together. If you're in a clinic, it's usually less because in the clinic, and I tell you, I work in a hospital setting. I can tell you if we saw our patients 13 minutes each, a lot of us would just live in a hospital, right? Because some of us will see 20, 25, 30, 35 patients a day. I have my ER docs. I shout out to my ER docs. They usually have to see like 40, 50 patients a day, right? They are running through an ER session. Now, obviously they got some systems in place. They usually have a note writer, but yeah, I'm not jealous, neither here or there, but like there's a rhyme to the reason. But understand, right? These are some issues that we typically have to face on the other side, right? There's insurance forms, there's technology, there's protocols, right? Like one insurance may say, hey, we want you to do this test every single year. Another insurance may say, hey, we want you to do this test every 6 months, right? So all of these things that your doctor has to juggle when taking care of you, right? And again, if your doctor has to juggle these things, like how can we fully expect the patients to understand what's going on with the system at hand, right? These are some numbers that I thought was so wild. 58% of Americans can't estimate their out-of-pocket costs. Now, we've done episodes before on the importance of recognizing when you're choosing an insurance, that out-of-pocket expense, that expense after you pay your deductible. More importantly, the deductible is so extremely important, right? Because a lot of people, understandably so, will focus on the payment premium, like how much do I got to pay a month, right? All right, let me try to see if I can pay less a month, not realizing that when they're paying less a month on one thing is because they're taxing you on the back end, right? So this is where I understand that 58% of Americans can't even estimate their out-of-pocket requests, out-of-pocket costs, and 29% avoid care due to just the administrative hurdles. I didn't say 29% of people avoid the care because they're afraid of the doctor. I didn't say 29% of people, avoid because, their fear of like finding out, hey, I might have this disease. No, 29% of people are avoiding getting into the healthcare system because they don't even want to have to deal with the paperwork. Like, I want y'all to think about that. They don't want to have to deal with the paperwork, so they're just avoiding us altogether. Like, that's kind of crazy, right? So, one of the things one of the lies I kind of burst, unfortunately, right? And this is something that I've always talked about. People always think that medicine is this like well-oiled machine because it deals with life or death. But unfortunately, that could be farther from the truth. Unfortunately, when it comes to the system of medicine, we don't take care of our number one customer, which is the patient. We don't do the best job taking care of our number one patient. We overwork our employees, right? AKA the doctors and nurses and everyone else in between. We overwork them. We underpay them. And then we fight tooth and nail, right? The system of healthcare, especially because a lot of it is derived under this insurance-based system. The system of healthcare makes it so hard for you as the patient to be getting taken care of. So understand, like, this is what we're going to talk about today, right? We're going to give some tips on like how to not fall through the cracks, right? Because there's a lot of ways you can fall through the cracks of this healthcare system. And if I can hope kind of, again, wipe away some of that feeling of doubt that you have when you're just thinking about the healthcare system, maybe, less than 29% of people will stay away just because of the paperwork. So I always like to, I started this thing where I like to take folks back, right? I always take folks back. I like to, bring up, a patient at hand. Cause I think once you can kind of connect a real person on the other end, it makes a little sense, right? So this is a very common issue that I deal with, especially for patients who end up in a hospital setting, right? And a lot of times they end up in a hospital setting because of some significant abnormal change, whether it be a heart attack, whether it be a stroke. But this person right here was just having, a change in bowel habits, and they noticed some blood in the stool, and they ran to the ER. They said, oh, I got, you know what? I went, I wiped, I see some blood. I'm not supposed to see some blood. Come help me out. Right. And in our workup of the care, he ended up being diagnosed with colon cancer. right? And I say this before, and I've said this before on blogs and podcasts. Colon cancer is one of those diseases that you just hate to catch late. Now, of course, you hate to catch every cancer late, but colon cancer is definitely one of those ones that you hate to catch late. Why? Because for the most part, 90% of these things are preventable. I want you to think about that. 90% of colon cancers are preventable. And colon cancer is responsible for top 5 deaths, cause of deaths, right, in the world, right? And at least in the country, right? And 90% of these things are preventable. So what happens, right? That screams something fell through the cracks, right? And for a lot of different reasons, especially when we think about screening, cancer screening, it's one of those things where if the provider doesn't really press upon the patient to say, hey, you kind of need to get this done like sooner rather than later, depending on age. And obviously we expect the provider to do a great job getting a good history and physical so they can tell you when you're supposed to get these types of screenings, right? Right? We're just assuming. We're assuming that that's happening, but I can assure you that doesn't, right? So you have one folly there. And then when it comes time to say, you know what, let's say you have that primary doctor does their job and they say, hey, yo, you need a colonoscopy. It's about that time. I've gotten a great family history. It's about that time to get a colonoscopy. And you say, all right, sure, I'll go get a colonoscopy. Who should I go see? Oh, I got to go see this doctor. Well, that doctor is on the other side of town and I work. And all of a sudden, a lot of more obstacles come into play. So understand that you have a person who ends up seeing me in a hospital because they have an abnormal stool and they see some blood in their stool. When 3-4 years down the line, their primary told them, hey, you need a colonoscopy, and they just never did it. They just never did it, right? Life happened, time happened. There was a copay. Copay might have been a little too high to go see the specialist. All of these things happen, and all of these things are true. So then that's how you end up in the hospital with a disease stage of colon cancer that is much later, much more aggressive because the routine screenings that probably would have caught it 3 to 5 years ago are nowhere to be found. Oh yeah. So understand, right? So when we talk about these disease process, right? And we talk about how confusing it is, right? And I just want you to comment below if you've been in a situation, healthcare, especially obviously healthcare related, where you know what, I was confused, right? I didn't know I was supposed to do this. I didn't really follow the directions appropriately. I didn't understand the directions. Drop it in the comments. Obviously, make sure you hit that subscribe. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and the like as well too for liking the video, especially if you've gotten this far. But if you've gotten to the point where you've been in that situation, drop a comment below, or if you want to tell your story, but like say, yep, me too, right? Like, yep, I've been there. Like I was confused as well, right? Like let me know what you're thinking in that regard. So what I want to do, right? What I want to do is I want to kind of discuss a change that I think needs to happen on the provider side and as well as the patient side, so that at the end of the appointments, there's just less confusion, right? Like if you're with me, let's come follow along, because I think that's important to kind of get us to where we need to get to so that we are less confused, so that we are not a part of that 60% of people who are just like, yeah, I just had this doctor's appointment and I don't know what's going on here, right? I want to make sure that isn't you. All right, so understand that you do not have to be a part of that statistic. We talked about this. You do not have to be a part of the confused, of the worried. You do not have to be a part of that group that gets diagnosed with disease process much later than they should have been. You do not have to be a part of that group, right? So let's talk about one, right? Let's talk about one thing, right? And this is a good one, right? Doctors hate paperwork, right? And when I say doctors hate paperwork, it's synonymous of the administrative burden that healthcare kind of places upon us, right? There's this administrative burden, whether it be documenting appropriately, getting appropriate screenings, all these things that the doctor has to know, coding appropriately, documenting appropriately, all these things your doctors have to know and have to try to navigate. When I think about, especially for my practitioners who follow and watch this channel, understand that if you don't, especially in this day and age, right? And y'all know I talk about, technology and AI a lot, right? In this day and age, if you are not developing systems, right, to make your process more seamless, you are going to be left to by your patients, and they're going to go to a doctor who does, right? Because it's going to get to a point where I saw online where a patient took a picture of their doctor who was on ChatGPT. Now they're like, oh my God, my doctor uses ChatGPT. Like I could have did that at home right now. From what I can see with the screenshot, the doctor wasn't really using it for ChatGPT. Like, hey, what is the diagnosis of high blood pressure? But they were using it for their notes, right? So they were able to, put a few keywords in, and because ChatGPT knew who they were and understood them, they spit out the note that the doctor could just copy and paste, right? Like, imagine how much time that doctor just saved, right? Because they put in just the minimum amount of information needed and the AI spit out the rest, right? These are some things that as a practitioner, we're going to have to get involved with, right? We're going to have to understand that technology is our friend. And I was on social media where a person got mad at me because they thought I was using AI, like an AI body double. So weird. Understand that AI and technology just in general is our friend. And it's not going nowhere, or it's going to replace you, right? You don't want to be replaced, right? If you don't want to be replaced, you have to make sure that you ingratiate yourself with technology and the technological advances, because it's up to you to help take care of your patients. And you can't take care of your patients effectively if you have all this administrative burden, holding you down, right? Number two, right? And what I want to say, especially, this is a big one, right? Insurance companies don't see your context, right? All they see is a billing code, right? All they see is a billing code, right? And I think that's why it's important, especially from the patient perspective, to understand that, you know what? I got to not only document appropriately, I got to make sure, I know all of my symptoms. I got to make sure that when I walk into that room, like they know what's going down with me, right? And a lot of times that doesn't happen. A lot of times that just does not happen. For whatever reason, patients are going into their appointment and be like, "Oh, I knew I had something to tell you. I kind of forgot," or their doctor's telling them like, "Hey, I think you got high blood pressure. I think you got something that needs to be followed up on." And they're like, and they're not documenting anything. They're not like keeping any sense of good record keeping to make sure that that's not a problem, right? But we're not going to do that here, because now you follow me. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, right? So these are some actionable steps that I want you to do today or your next appointment to get you where you need to be, right? Bring a health advocate, right? Like, how often did I say that a lot of times especially when I'm doing outpatient medicine, when the men would come to see me, their wife was outside the door, their girlfriend was outside the door in the lobby. And they would almost threaten him, say, "Hey, you better tell him everything going on with you, or I'm coming behind them." Right? Like they were that husband's health advocate, right? Bring a health advocate, friend, family member, especially if you're the type who needs to listen, but you may not be able to write your notes. Bring someone who can write your notes for you. Again, and I talk about this, get the teaching back, right? Before you leave, right? And this is for my practitioners. Before you leave, you should be making sure that your patients can repeat what they said, what you said, and understand it, right? So that's always my thing, right? I'm talking to a patient. I do it in the hospital. I'm talking to a patient. And then after I kind of explain what's going on, I said, "Okay, yeah. So can you explain to me what we're going to do for you today? Just so I know everyone's like on the same path, right?" And you'd be surprised how many of them are like, "Dog, I'll be honest. I'll be honest, dog. I wasn't really paying attention." Like, okay, cool. I'll say it again, right? So, encourage, and I don't want to say encourage, require your patients to repeat what you just said and make sure that they have understanding. Because of course, you, the doctor, you're going to understand what they said, but like if you don't make sure that the patient who is your customer understands, like you're going to be lost. I love patient portals. I think patient portals are very, very underutilized by patients. I think if you, and this anecdotal, right? Put in the comments. Do you even know how to access your doctor's patient portal? If I had to give you $10 right now, if I had to give you $100 right now and say, "Hey, go log into your patient portal. One, would you even know if your doctor had a patient portal? Would you know how to log in? Do you remember your login, right? I think the patient portals are very underutilized and something that all patients should be utilizing. And more importantly, on the practitioner side, making sure you have a patient portal so that your patients can utilize. Even though I think most electronic medical records kind of come with that as a baseline standard, but you never know. Don't be afraid to ask why. Y'all know me. One of my favorite attendings, Dr. Canner, his most important question was why. If you asked why and you understood your why, everything else became simple. And that's how I kind of live my philosophy, right? That's why I do what I do, on social media and on the YouTube channel. Is I stress that if I can just get that why, if I can just get the patient to understand why I am like champion the things I'm champion, they'll understand, right? So when I talk about like this confusing healthcare, the why for today's episode is so that you understand that it's a life or death situation if you don't understand what's going on during your appointment. It's a life or death situation if you don't understand, if you can't repeat what your doctor said, right? If you get to the house and your friends or your family members say, "Hey, what did the doctor talk about?" I don't know. Like, no, that is a life or death situation. It does not take long for that routine screening that you're supposed to get that get ignored to be a problem. Again, think about my guy in residency, right? It doesn't take long for you to get to that point, right? So understand that, like, you got to be not afraid to ask that why. And then this is a big thing. I'm just about knowing your insurance, right? This is more for the patients, right? You got to understand what type of insurance plan you got. You got to understand the type of benefits you have. You got to understand if you want to test and they deny it, who can I appeal to? Got to understand all these things. You just got to, right? Like, I wish I could say otherwise, but you just have to be informed. We are living in a day and age, right? And obviously, yeah, I'm 42, 43 right now. We're living in a day and age where we do not have the ability to be like, "Oh, I didn't know that. All right, I didn't understand the answer." No, get on your phones. If you get on your computers, if you don't have one, go to the library. Like, someone has some type of access to technology, and ask the questions that you need to ask it. And if you got to do that while you're at the doctor's appointment, go ahead and ask that, or just ask your doctor in front of you. But like, we're going to have to use technology to get us to where we need to get to, especially as technology continues to move at absolutely record pace. And there may be a time in 3 to 5 years where that whole doctor patient relationship is totally different than what it is now. It might be a doctor AI patient relationship. Like, someone may come in between us, a chat GPT, a Claude, a Gemini, right? Something may some bot may come in between us and our patient doctor relationship. And I have to be able to understand that and navigate that to get everyone happy, the bot happy, as well as my patient. So again, beware, right? As we're getting ready to wrap up, man, beware of a lot of these myths, and there's a lot of healthcare myths that are just around. Unfortunately, because I do social media, I actually have to be privy to a lot of these. I would say, I don't want to say hoaxes, right? But I usually have to be privy to a lot of these half truths that are out there, because I can't defend medicine if I don't know what I'm defending against, right? So my timeline is very weird with people who are still thinking that, assassination attempts didn't happen, or aliens are in Area 51, and like, that you need a colon cleanse or a cleanse type of cleanse for every single part of the body, right? Like that is the world we're living in now, especially with social media, especially with the internet. So you have to be able to kind of navigate around those half truths, not truths, just flat out lies. You got to be able to navigate around those, right? And that's why you need a good healthcare provider. Unfortunately, again, I'm not your healthcare provider, but you got to find one, right? A good healthcare provider to get you to the point where you understand, like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to listen to what that person just wrote on their blog, because that don't even sound right to me. That don't even sound right to me. So understand, you got to get rid of that. You got to get over these myths that are out there, that just serve as continued roadblocks in our path to get better and feel healthier, right? You just got to do it, right? So before we get out of here, right? I keep saying that, but before we get out of here, understand yes, healthcare is confusing. If you didn't get anything else from today's episode, yes, healthcare is confusing, but you are not powerless anymore, right? You are not powerless, right? You have some tips and tricks of the trade, but from a physician to be able to help weave you around to where you need to get to, right? Which the destination is a healthier life. If you're down here and you're looking way over there, you say, all right, how do I get over there? What's in that destination? What's in that direction? It is a healthier life if you're able to kind of manage what you need to manage when it comes to your healthcare. Right? If you're able to do that, if you're able to avoid all of these pitfalls and all these confusing rhetorics and new insurance algorithms and AI does, if you're able to stay calm and get you to the point where you get from point A to point B, you'll eventually get to point C, right? Like you'll eventually get there. So I'm yours truly, Dr. Barry Pierre. You guys be blessed. I'm gonna see you guys next week.